Good afternoon, everyone. I'll call the meeting to order. If everyone could rise and join us in the singing of O Canada.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you. Would you now join us in a moment of silent reflection? Thank you. Councillor Joyce, I think you have the adoption of the open session agenda.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and through you, that the agenda for the open session of the regular council meeting of Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023 be adopted as circulated with the following amendments. The addition of item 6.1 being a deputation of Mike Belton regarding a request for the repair of damage to Potts Shore Road, Fenelon. This relates to item number 9.2.37 on the agenda. It's motion by myself, seconded by Councillor Warren.
Thank you. All in favor? And that's passed. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest on anything on the open session agenda today? Seeing none, should any occur during the course of the meeting, advise the chair, we'll deal with it accordingly. Moving on to notices and information by members of council and staff. Deputy Mayor Richardson.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. As we celebrate Paramedic Week and our local paramedic graduation this Friday, May 26th, I'd love to give a shout out to our very own local paramedic, Beatrice Frasca, who will be receiving the Medal for Paramedic Bravery at Queen's Park ceremony tomorrow. During our paramedic week. It's pretty awesome that we have a local paramedic that responded to a dangerous situation when she was on holidays and provided an amazing service and has gone above and beyond the call of duty. And it makes us reflect and, you know, really appreciate all our paramedics across the city of Kawartha Lakes for everything you do on a daily basis, both at work and off hours. So pass that message on from us. We really do appreciate it. Another is the Bethany Athletic Society just had a great week celebrating 4 days this past weekend. It was super successful. The weather gods were mostly on our favor. A big congratulations to both the executive and all the volunteers, because it takes a lot of volunteers to run a 4-day event, but it was nice to see that back on the books. Roundup days are back. So this Saturday, May 27th at Manvers, the Rolling Hills Public School, from 8 to 12 p.m. The materials will be accepted free of charge. Residents are invited to drop off hazardous household waste, textiles, and bulky plastics. For all the details, please visit the city website. And also this Saturday, May 27th, we have a video dance at the Manvers Arena with all proceeds going to our local food banks at Pontypool, Bethany, and Janville. So thank you very much. Thanks.
Lots going on in Ward 8. Councillor Smeaton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, congratulations to the Optimist Soccer. Brought back a lot of memories last Monday night I went out. I am a little worried about Councillor McDonald being in charge of refereeing, but that's okay. Otherwise, things went well. Thanks for all the invites in Ward 5. I'm trying my best to get to things, and there's so much going on. So it's a real treat these first springtime being a councillor. There's been a lot of really great dinners and events, and I'm enjoying that. The Lindsay Market, just a reminder, it's a wonderful place to be. Get down and support our 19 vendors. Lots of concerts coming up this summer, and so I just encourage people to visit the Chamber site, Chamber of Commerce site, and thank you to Alyssa and her team, and welcome to the new board, fantastic new board of people on the Chamber, and thanks to the past board. Track and field, you'll see a lot of kids in a lot of schools. I always like to do a little shout out to the schools, and you're going to see a lot of kids outside again, and post-pandemic, just another great thing to see. The track and field season's up. 3 downtown businesses from Ward 5 were recognized in the JA Hall of Fame. Councillors McDonald and Ashmore and I were able to attend the evening. It was wonderful. So all 6 recipients are great, and especially in Ward 5 for us, Ward's lawyers, Olympia and Liz Grimes, Kathy Allen. It was a really, really nice evening, and I'll just piggyback on Deputy Mayor Richardson that I'm looking forward to the EMS celebration this Friday at 1 o'clock. That's going to be a great, great tribute, and meet some new people and thank a lot of people. So that's things in Ward 5. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Warren.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Smeaton and Ashmore and I were able to help celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Globus Theatre, and it was a really fun night, and we all really enjoyed ourselves, and I just want to say well done to James and Sarah for 20 years. It's been amazing. I also had the pleasure of attending the Kinmount Economic Development Fundraiser on April 29th, and it was really heartening to see so many supporting their community. As well, I attended a fundraiser for the Kinmount Farmers Market, and that was a fun tea in honor of our new king, and they put on a fabulous tea. It was a lot of fun too. And I have also attended a couple of rallies up in Minden Hills to support Minden Hills in their fight to keep the ER open. The organizers have raised funds to hire a lawyer to file an injunction. I hope they are successful, because 37% of the people using the Minden ER last year were from Kawartha Lakes, so I wish them well for everybody in the region. I helped this last weekend celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Boyd Museum, and they've done a refresh of the museum, and it looks really great. So well done, Barb McFadgen and all her volunteers. Going forward, I'm looking forward to the 40th anniversary of the Burnt River Community Center this Sunday at 1, and also Settlers Day is on June 10th, which is, it's going to be wonderful to go to that also. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor McDonald.
Through you, thank you very much. I also had the Optimist down here also, just to let everybody know that we have over 500 kids playing soccer this year. Wilson's Fields and the Optimist Field is absolutely full on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and it's if you like soccer, come out and watch these kids play. It's a lot of fun. Secondly I had the opportunity to go down to the Boys and Girls Club, and I watched a match between the Lindsay Police and the Boys Boys and Girls Club play a basketball game, and it was really fun. And I'm telling you, those kids gave the police force a run for their money. But a great job for them for great support they do for our community with the Boys and Girls Club. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mayor. And on Councillor Warren's update, Save the Minden Emergency Room. This is the T-shirt and the color for the incredible organizing effort we've seen by the residents of Minden and many here in Kawartha Lakes and indeed across the province. The movement has really taken on. Some think perhaps it doesn't affect all of us. We all use emergency hospital facilities from time to time. Ontario has the most extreme hospital downsizing in Canada, according to data from the Ontario Health Coalition. And earlier this year, the Toronto Star revealed a staggering number of temporary ER closures this year. So our dedication, and again, the unanimous resolution from this council to support the efforts of Minden Hills Council is a great step in the right direction for support. And I urge everyone to consider supporting these ongoing efforts that affect us here in Kawartha Lakes and far beyond. Secondly, Mayor, that noise everyone heard on Friday morning was the grand opening of this year's Fenland Falls Farmers Market at the corner of Bond Street West and John Streets. Big kudos to Kathy Martin, Bev Jeeves, and their team to get that coordinated again this year. It'll be on every Friday, 9 to 2 p.m. until Thanksgiving in the old arena lot, which is at the corner of Bond Street West and John Streets, as mentioned. And last but not least, fellow councillors, we have provincial champions in our midst here in Kawartha Lakes, and they hail from Ward 3. Fenland Township Public School Grade 8 in Cameron. Their construction team won big, placing first in the Provincial Ontario Championships recently for the Ontario Skills Building Competition that was held in Toronto. So please join me in congratulating Carson, Ethan, Liam, Peyton, and their teacher support, Susan Janke. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the Fenland Farmers Market is also open Saturdays from 10 to 2, is it not? Not this year. Okay, thank you. Councillor Ashmore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to thank the Dunsford Lions Club, who held a very successful classic car show last Sunday, actually the 14th, week ago, Mother's Day. And it was certainly well attended, and the Dunsford Community Centre and the Dunsford Lions Club, so they did a great job. Just recently, about an hour ago, I came from Omimi, where it was announced that it was given the Omimi Legion was given their final payment for the upgrading of their kitchen, and then they now have an industrial oven, conventional oven, and ultra modern fryer equipment in their kitchen, so they can handle just about everything, and the patio as well, and for many people. So it's a great update for their facility at the Legion, and if you're ever in the Legion, please come in. And the Omimi Swans are primarily in charge of that area, and they do a great job. And finally, I wanted to thank Fire Services for last Friday. It was a windy day, and we averted a major fire. There was a brush fire on Settlers Road. There weren't any injuries or any structural damage, but could have been hundreds of acres. But the fast call and to service of the fire service prevented that, so I wanted to thank them for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me. I have a couple of announcements. The CAO and I went to the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus meeting that was held at the Viamead in Kawartha North. It was a full-day meeting, and we went over their plans for 7 and 7, which is a reminder that they're trying to build 7,000 affordable units in 7 years across Eastern Ontario. We also had an update on some of their other initiatives, and particularly EORN, and you'll be getting those updates at the June 6th Committee of the Whole meeting. So just a successful time at the Wardens Caucus. We have a special guest with us today. Lindsay resident, actually Downeyville resident, I believe, and St. Thomas Aquinas Secondary School student, Siobhan Marie, has received the 2023 Terry Fox Humanitarian Award for her continued impact within the community. This award honors the legacy of one of Canada's greatest heroes, Terry Fox, with over 840 applicants. Only 15 people are granted the award with a monetary scholarship up to $28,000. This award is to recognize young individuals across Canada that exhibit outstanding courage and perseverance when faced with a difficult challenge and have made a positive difference in society, along with strong academics and athletics. I want to thank Siobhan for her inspiring impact and the dedication she has shown within our community. With people like Siobhan leading the next generation in the Kawartha Lakes, the future is bright. Congratulations on an incredible accomplishment. I look forward to seeing where your future takes you and the accomplishments you achieve. And if you would, maybe you'd come down here and we'll take a picture with Councillor Ashmore for posterity. And we have a certificate for you, which I believe you'll probably receive another one in the mail. Now we have notices of information from staff and CEO Ron Taylor. Please go ahead.
Mr. Mayor and members of council, thank you for the opportunity. Wanted to shout out that May is Employee Appreciation Month here at the city. And it's a tradition that we've been doing for a number of years. It's a time for us to pause and reflect, to reconnect in many cases, and to recognize our exemplary city staff. And we do this citywide. We do it in our departments and divisions, even in our work groups and teams, and one-on-one. And so I want to just commemorate that May is that month. So if you're passing by any staff members, give them a shout out. They'd love to hear from you. And I'm saying this to all of our other staff. It's nice to see everybody sort of collectively back in person and back reconnecting. But I'd like to take this opportunity to thank each and every employee for their service. And as you probably know, there's over 1,200 strong of our employees delivering hundreds of different services and programs throughout the city. And I really just think the overall contributions to the community, it's unmeasured. And certainly, I know our employees are all proud to contribute to their local area. So as I mentioned, departments are celebrating and acknowledging staff as well within their specific groups, whether it's milestones, significant achievements, and so on. And so if I could, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to take a minute to recognize some significant employment milestones that some employees have achieved here at the city. And I'm going to start with just listing off the 25 years of service. So all of these service milestones are to the end of last year. And with 25 years of service here with the city, we have Scott Elder, volunteer firefighter, Station 3, in Bobcaygeon. Robert Cousineau, volunteer firefighter and captain, also Station 3 in Bobcaygeon. Kevin Coppins, a volunteer firefighter and captain, Station 15 in Kirkfield. Lyle Cully is a senior arena maintenance administrator, Parks and Recreation Division in our Community Services Department. Darcy Finn is an equipment operator in the Eldon Depot with our Public Works Department. Bobby Mitchell, administrative assistant with the Municipal Law Enforcement and Licensing Group in my department. Shelley Clark, an Administrative Assistant in Public Works, and maybe sadly, but happy for her, she's retiring later this year, so we wish her well. And Terry Farr is a Supervisor, ORO, in the Distribution and Collection Group for Water and Wastewater in Public Works. So those were 25-year employment milestones achieved by those employees. Some have achieved 30 years of employment here with the city, and same, I'd like to recognize them. Randy Weatherall, a volunteer firefighter, station coordinator, Station 9 in Janettville. Kelly Novus, eligibility review officer in our Human Services Department in the Housing Division. Melissa Dunford is a registered practical nurse at Victoria Manor in our Human Services Department. Randy Barrett, North Area Parks Crew Leader with our Parks and Recreation Division in Community Services. And Paul Atkinson is a volunteer firefighter and captain, Station 9 in Janettville. 30-year milestones for those employees. We had one employee that reached the 35-year milestone, and that is Linda Wilson. She's a customer relations representative in our Human Services Department. And Mr. Mayor, if I could, I may ask you to come and join me for this last recognition. We also had one employee that reached the 40 years of service milestone here with the city. And this employee served in both the volunteer as well as the full-time fire service in a variety of positions. And currently, it is our city's fire chief, Terry Jones. If I could ask Terry to just come up and join us briefly. Along with our recognition, the Office of the Fire Marshal and Emergency Management has sent for the mayor to present to the chief his 40-year service bar. And so join me in congratulating Chief Jones. Thank you. Thank you, man.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Mr. Mayor and members of council, I just want to thank you for this opportunity to recognize our staff. Again, that's just a snapshot of some of the major milestones, and we're going to continue to celebrate all of the collective achievements over May, which is Employee Appreciation Month. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the time.
Thank you. Are there any other announcements from staff? Sarah, do you want to follow up on Councillor Richardson, or?
No, I appreciate her comments for sure, Mr. Mayor, and it is a time to reflect on the positive impact that our paramedics make and the great work that they do every day. So thank you to all of those paramedics, and thanks to everybody here for the support for this week.
Thank you. Moving on in the agenda. Item 5 is council minutes. Regular council meeting of April 18th, 2023, that the minutes be received and adopted. Can I have Deputy Mayor Richardson, Councillor Yeo? Comments or questions? No? All in favor? And that's passed. Move on to do deputations. And we have one deputation with us today, Mr. Mike Belton. If you come to the podium, please, and you'll find a button at the bottom that turns that microphone on. There you go. You have 5 minutes, Mr. Belton.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and councillors. My name is Mike Belton, and I live on Pot Shore Road in Finland Falls. And we're just coming up on our 25th anniversary of being there. Please excuse my shocking appearance today. I had a stumble in my backyard, fell down a hill and hit the corner of a brick wall. So it's 13 hours in the ER and 6 stitches. But once I got in the ER, they did a great job fixing me up. I'm here today representing the residences of Pot Shore Road, and there are 23 dwellings on the road. And I'm happy to see 2 of my neighbors have joined me. This is Barb and Bruce McDonald, who live down the road from me. I'm here to petition the city to give consideration to a comprehensive repair or repavement of Pot Shore Road. The road shows considerable wear and tear and has been falling apart for the last decade. In fact, my wife, Jean Belton, wrote to the city on May 27, 2017, making a similar request and included a petition of 19 names of residents. Pot Shore Road is about 1 kilometer long and has a 60-degree bend in the road at the halfway point. Every winter, our road is degraded by the snow plow, which scrapes down to the pavement. In doing so, the plow sometimes picks up the asphalt and has stripped about 2 feet of pavement off the edge of the road in some areas near the bend in the road. In other spots, there is pavement broken up and tossed to the side of the road. The road pavement has become narrower in several areas along the road. This cannot be properly fixed with a truckload of hot mix and 2 men with shovels. It won't last past the next plowing. As well, the plow will sometimes lift up any previous pothole repairs that may be standing a bit proud, thus reopening the pothole. The plow will come by on some days when there is less than 5 centimeters of snow on the road. That makes the damage worse as the blade is right down on the pavement and catches the pavement, ripping it up. It would be better if the snow plow only plowed and sanded the north end a corner where it meets Highway 35 on days when there is less than 10 centimeters of snow on the road. Just plow enough so that a car can safely stop before reaching the intersection. The north half of the road is in pretty good shape. I wouldn't be here today if the whole road looked like the north half. The south half of the road is in much worse shape. There are so many potholes and there is so much broken pavement on the south half of the road that it makes for a very rough ride. It's like driving over a washboard. There are some particularly bad sections related by postal numbers. Between numbers 39 and 49, the southbound lane pavement is practically all gone. At number 57, significant erosion in the southbound lane. At number 61, significant erosion in the middle of the road. And at numbers 65 and 67, almost no pavement left, only potholes, and at number 67, there's no pavement left. It's now turned into a dirt road. Many people like to walk on the road for exercise due to the relatively light traffic compared with walking on the highway. In fact, some people from neighboring roads will come to walk on Pot Shore and the adjacent Bayview Road because of the relative safety. A cleaned up road would make for better, safer walking. Finally, Pot Shore was once a completely paved road. About 15 years ago, a tar and gravel cold mix was placed on most of the road as a repair. But due to budget constraints back then, the entire road was not completely refinished. The road in front of the last 2 properties at the south end, numbers 65 and 67, mentioned earlier, was not repaved back then. This particular section has now completely broken down and is turned back into a dirt road. It is much rougher than the next road south, Bayview, which is a dirt road. So on behalf of all the property owners on Pot Shore Road, I ask Council to review the plow damage repair program and concentrate a good repair of the south half of the road. The north half can be fixed up with normal pothole repair work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Belton. If you'd just like to stay there, and we'll see if council has any questions for you.
Yeah.
Not seeing any, so
Okay.
I will look for a motion to receive Mr. Belton's deputation. Councillor Perry, Councillor Warren, all in favor? Thank you. We do have, your councillor has brought forward a memo to council to try and deal with getting some relief for the road, and we'll be dealing with that later on the agenda.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
have a copy of my minutes if, Sarah, you would like a copy of them. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Item 7 is correspondence. We have none. There are no presentations today. So we'll move on to Committee of the Whole. And I have extractions from Committee of the Whole. 931, Deputy Mayor Richardson. 934, Councillor Warren. 939, Councillor Ashmore. 9316, Councillor Ashmore. 9319, Councillor Perry. 9323 is Councillor Warren. 9326 is Deputy Mayor Richardson. 9327 is Councillor Perry. So we'll start with, did I miss any? Did you say 934? Sorry, it should be 935. So we'll start with 931, Deputy Mayor Richardson.
Thank you, and through you. As a result of the deputation that was given at the Committee of the Whole on May 9th, I do have a recommendation that I would like to bring forward. That the deputation of Helen Yazdim and Edward Young of the Bethany Baja Center of Learning regarding a request for an encroachment agreement for a sign at Ski Hill Road and Bethany Hills Road, Bethany, be received, and that staff report back to council by the end of Q3 regarding the request for an encroachment agreement and to include the options that are available to grant this request. If I can get a seconder.
Councillor McDonald, did you want to speak to it?
Sure, just quickly. I think they did a great job doing the deputation and provided a lot of background information. And as I made a statement at that Committee of the Whole meeting, is that there has been a sign that's been historically on that corner probably close to 50 years as a result of Bethany Hills School and Sandalwood. So, and it goes into an unassumed end of road. So there's not a ton of traffic down there. So I'm just looking to move forward and, grant this request through city's discretion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McDonald, did you wish to speak to it?
Just to point out, 50 years of sign being there, it seems pretty simple to me that if somebody can have a sign there for 50 years, we should be able to support that.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's passed. Item 935, is the resolution to support Township of Minden efforts regarding closure of the Minden Hospital Emergency Department. Councillor Warren.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to, I'll move the recommendation, but that council supports the Township of Minden Hills efforts regarding the closure of the Minden Hospital Emergency Department, and that a copy of this recommendation be forwarded to the Township of Minden Hills, Halliburton Highlands Health Services, MPP Lori Scott and the Ministry of Health. I'd also like to amend it and add also Halliburton County and AMO, if I get a second.
Do you have a seconder? Councillor Perry.
And I just, thank you, just quickly, I touched on the urgency of this resolution and the support to Minden Hills, and I'm hoping that the injunction stops the closure. It's very important, so I hope you'll support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perry, do you wish to speak to it? Thank you. Anybody else? All in favor? And that's passed. Next item is 939, which was a presentation by Marina Hodson on an overview of Bill 5. Councillor Ashmore, you extracted that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question first through you to the CAO. If you could please explain what this support is and whether we're supporting this private members bill, which is Bill 5, which I have a copy of it here, but I just wanted to get your summary. What exactly are we doing here with this And are we supporting this motion going forward as a council, or how is this? If you could I sort of explain, and I just had some comments.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So my understanding is the deputation was simply received by council at committee of the whole. So you would be receiving that information. There was no action beyond receipt taken by council or directed. The Bill 5 is in process. It's legislation that is being considered. I believe it's been sent to a provincial committee for further review. Essentially, it's expanding out on workplace violence and harassment legislation that's already entrenched in the Health and Safety Act, but it is looking at some other sort of steps as it relates to elected officials. So there's no further action happening today, simply receiving the deputation. On May 30th, you have a planned council orientation session, and we'll be talking about some of the policies that govern your work. One is the Code of Conduct, and we will be touching on or giving you a better overview of what Bill 5 is even proposing. So we will bring that forward, but again, just for information, just like it was today.
Okay. Yeah, so when I read through this this bill, which was brought to by I guess a member of provincial parliament, but the issue I have with this is nothing to do with workplace violence and harassment. That's a serious issue, very serious, and that's not what I'm bringing up. Why I'm bringing up this topic. Why I'm bringing this up is because I find it kind of let's say disturbing or concerning, I guess you could say, that that we're bypassing the police process. If you have violence and harassment in the workplace, then that's something that the police should be investigating. If this proposed legislation goes through, you basically have two levels of prosecution. So you're giving full authority to an unelected integrity commissioner who can prosecute you without your due process. And also, in my opinion, the integrity commissioner would have a conflict of interest, because we're told that we can ask the integrity commissioner for not legal advice, but advice, as they say. But at the same time, he can give you advice, and then he can prosecute you as well without giving you a due process, and basically bypassing the process whereby police are not involved, and he's basically the judge and jury for everything. And it's an unelected person. I'm not here to denigrate the integrity commissioner. I'm just saying that this is not right. When you have an unelected, and there's many integrity commissioners in Ontario, you have an unelected person that's basically making all the decisions and not giving you the due process that you're allowed to go through court if you had to. That I think we're sort of overstepping. We're getting into a kind of a gray area here, where we're giving power to unelected officials here that can do prosecutions on their own. Elected officials get their litmus test. They take their test at election. People either support them or they don't, and that's where you get hired or fired. But by having an integrity commissioner basically take over the job of the police, I don't think that's right. So I'm not going to support it, but I just thought I'd put that out there.
Well, it's just to receive, and your fight is with the province, not with us, because we're not passing it. So, maybe you want to send an email off to your MPP and give her your views. Deputy Mayor Richardson, did you?
No, thank you. And I was just going probably down the same route, just saying that, this was to receive, and I guess it's the interpretation of the bill, and I look forward to the presentation next week. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ashmore, did you want to move the receive or not?
I'll move to receive. It's fine.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Richards, Deputy Mayor Richardson, all in favor? And that passes. Next item is item 9319, which is the off-road vehicle traffic monitoring program. Councillor Perry, you extracted that.
I did extract that. Thank you, Mayor. And I'd like to commend Bylaw Manager Sloan for his presentation on the midway report for the pilot program of off-road vehicles on City of Kawartha Lakes Road. Flowing from this report, what I'd like to do is to bring a motion for council. I've tried to get this motion out before, but I think this is the best way to put it, that staff prepare a report with bylaw options to prohibit failure to stop at stop signs on the Victoria Rail Trail and modifying mufflers, and report back to regular council meeting of 25 July 2023. This, I guess should I get a seconder before I speak to it, awesome. Mayor?
Be a good idea. Councillor Warren? Let me just find out, Manager Sloan, is the July council meeting sufficient time for you to look at this?
Through to you, Mr. Mayor. This report and the project program that's ongoing doesn't really address the scope of the Victoria Rail Trail is not included in the overall scope of this program. But what the councillor is suggesting, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, is a bylaw amendment to the Victoria Rail Trail bylaw. I would speak generally in support of that motion, but I would like to see it proceed separately from this conversation.
So I think you have a memo coming to June 6th, is that correct?
I had a memo earlier, but given Manager Sloan's report, I completely understand. It's not about bylaws or stopping at the stop signs or modified mufflers. Manager Sloan's report is about the midterm section of the proposed pilot project ongoing. In order to put this on the table today, so we get some progress during the summer, I thought, since we're talking about off-road vehicles, it would be a great time to move this motion, Mayor.
I see that. Well, you have a seconder. Go ahead and speak to it.
Right. I just won't take a lot of time. This has come up since, as a ward councillor, since the campaign, and has evolved since then. In bringing all the parties together, this motion is supported by residents on the trail, walkers, bicycle users, CATVA, and the Kawartha Lakes Snowmobile Club. They would like the authority to be able to have their deputized wardens, with two of which we passed, an increase of 2 of which we passed at the last council meeting, be able to address 2 of the most chronic problems. One is a safety issue of failure to stop time and time again at the stop signs on the trail, and the other is the issue of modified mufflers and creating the noise issue, cans as they're called, predominantly on snow machines, snowmobiles. I know this is not an easy task to put these pieces together, but there are, in my research, examples that could be followed. I know Durham region has taken on this issue recently. Toronto, Oakville, apparently in my understanding, has a bylaw in place. London and Barrie have also been dealing with modified muffler noises, so perhaps there are some places to bring options forward from there without a whole lot of having to reinvent the wheel. Manager Sloan and I have gone back and forth somewhat on this issue. I'm pleased to hear of his support, and I will leave it there because this comes from a consensus of trail users. Thank you.
Councillor Warren.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I was at that meeting also, and there was a fulsome discussion about this. And as the trail is open, this was something that would help mitigate some of the issues in that area. So I think it's a good resolution, and I hope it passes. Thank you.
Councillor Smeaton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, just a question. It sounds to me a little bit different than a motion. Like, I almost feel like this is a memorandum that would be sent, and then we would have time to think about it, and it would be placed on a committee of the whole agenda as opposed to a motion. Am I wrong? Like, when I read through my agenda, I didn't see this coming, so I'm just confused. I'm not saying I don't support it. It sounds incredibly logical, and completely supportable. I'm just confused as to memos that I have, for example, that I might choose to start throwing on council meetings as well if they kind of fit in with something that's on the agenda, but I may be out of turn there.
Not completely. This is a rather confused issue. So I think what we would suggest in this case, and I'm just going to throw this out there as a suggestion, that we deal with the report, off-road vehicles, and we split this, and then we deal with a motion for Manager Sloan to bring back a report and appropriate bylaws to deal with those two issues. Is that acceptable?
And that would be a follow-on motion today?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, if I could. I mean,
Yeah.
This has... Oh, okay. I'm moving the first one then to support, and to receive Manager Sloan's excellent report.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Warren. All in favor? Okay, that's modified mufflers on ATVs.
And snowmobiles.
And snowmobiles. And you have a seconder for that, and the motion will be that Manager Sloan be asked to bring back a report for the July 25th meeting, if he can. We'll try, and it will have appropriate bylaws, if possible. Okay? Do you want to speak to that?
Unless anyone else wants to, I can summarize.
Anybody else? You good with that? Okay. Seeing nobody else, go ahead and sum up.
Thank you. And just with respect to my council colleagues, just to explain kind of why this has been produced this way. The memo was produced and circulated by email. However, with Councillor Sloan's report coming, we wanted to see what was in that report. And of course, the report, when it was issued, did not address this specific issue. That's why there's a little creativity being exercised today. I know my fellow councillors were aware of this issue, this proposed bylaw, and proposed motion rather. So I appreciate their indulgence. It's just one that needs to get done so we can get something in place, especially for the fall season. So thank you.
That was sum up. All in favor? And that's passed. Our next extraction is item 9323, Councillor Warren. That's the report 2023 Arts and Culture Resiliency Fund.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to move the resolution. I have talked to staff, but I have a follow-up, if I may. Thank you.
You're moving it? You got a seconder? Councillor Yo? All in favor? That's passed. What's your follow-up, Councillor Warren?
So maybe I should have spoken to the previous one. There are organizations and not-for-profits in Bobcaygeon that do a lot of work. So that's just the premise. There's Environmental Action Bobcaygeon, there's Impact 32 that does a whole lot of work for the community. So that's just a preamble. So my motion would be that a report come back from staff on the possibility of a fund to help operating challenges for not-for-profits in 2024. And if I get a seconder, I'll speak to it. Thank you.
Seconder? Councillor Joyce.
Thank you. So, as I said, Impact 32 has done probably 20 initiatives and projects over the last, so many years, just unbelievable. Bike share, all sorts of different economic development programs. And I think that, and also Environmental Action Bobcaygeon. Now, Environmental Action Bobcaygeon has done all sorts of historical and economic development initiatives, but they don't meet the criteria of the previous motion. So for me, it was a bit of a fairness issue that people who do so much work need to have a little bit of help also. So it's just to consider it, and we'll see what comes back from staff. But I know in my area there are not-for-profits that have a hard time with operating, particularly. Like capital is easy to attain, but operating is very difficult. So I hope you'll support this. It's just to get a report back. Thank you very much.
Councillor Joyce, did you want to speak to it?
No, I was interested in what Councillor Warren had to say. That's why I seconded it.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Richardson.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I was just wondering, would this not be, like, I like where we're going with this, so this is more maybe to help design some of those 2024 program developments? Is that where that would kind of fall in that bucket? I just wanted clarification on that.
Clarification from staff? Okay, definitely. Yeah, it sort of broadens the direction from council, and it may pull in other policy documents that the municipality already has in place that supports activities in the community that help our priorities move forward, be they arts, culture, heritage, tourism, healthy communities, the like. So for sure.
Okay. Councillor Smeet.
Yeah, just a quick question. Are we, is your idea that a similar decision unit type idea like this one came from would be a possibility down the road for the things that you were speaking to? Or are you suggesting that the different organizations you mentioned and the groups that are already working so hard in those environmental issues and so on are tapping into this Resilience Fund? I just want to clarify in my head.
No, that's why I passed the previous, we passed the previous resolution. This is an add-on for possibilities for a decision unit next year. For it could be all over the city. I'm just giving you some what's happening in Bobcaygeon. Just to quickly say some of the things that they've done Communities in Bloom, tourism website, Visit Bobcaygeon, social media, Small Business Week seminars, networking, summer students, Bobcaygeon Welcome Center, bike share, extended docking, water and power at Lock 32, Wayfind. It just goes on and on and on. And then EAB just did the EV charging station. They've done Wilderness Park, water bottle stations, kayak racks, bike share. So it's, you know, they've done a lot, and they do a lot for the community and economic development. Hey, you know, Bobcaygeon is a destination too, so I just wanted to make sure that they are looked after in their operating, because that's a challenge for all these groups. Thank you.
CAO wants clarification.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, just to clarify, because the resiliency fund that you just passed is a one-time, just this year, and it was a decision unit. There's an outstanding resolution to also bring back later this year options or a model for ongoing, permanent operating funding for arts, culture, and heritage groups. So that work is well in play, and those in that sector are being reviewed, sort of looking at the overall. So I just wanted to clarify more for staff's report back that I'll say separate and distinct, but what you're looking for is options for a permanent operating budget fund for not-for-profits in, I'll say, all sectors for consideration of council. I just would caution that if that's the case, that's a huge sort of project and scope. And so there'll be best efforts to bring back sort of that broad scope and information, but I'm not sure we can pin it down like this resiliency fund, that's all.
It is large, but it would be for economic development, not arts and culture per se, because it would be arts and culture have their own kind of a fund, maybe going forward as you spoke. going forward in future. But that will not take in organizations like Environmental Action Bob Cajun that did a historic stack wall in Bob Cajun, which is historical. It's something that, you know, they don't usually do, but also they've done historical an app that people can go around the village, and so they don't fit into arts and culture. That's what I'm trying to say. And I'm sure that there are others that don't fit into that, but I don't think it's going to be such a broad scope because it would be economic development, I would think. So that's what I talked to staff this morning, and they were, you know, talking about an umbrella possibility of an umbrella fund. So that might be able to take in other organizations if they feed into a plan that we already have within the city. So like an ECDEV plan that we have, or the healthy environment plan, or something like that that speaks to that. So.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through that, really just more clarification so that staff understand the scope, because I guess I'm just concerned that there's a lot of economic development eligibility, there's a lot of environmental eligibility, there's youth not-for-profits, there's sporting groups not-for-profits. So if you are clarifying that it's specific to economic development programming, that helps. I just wanted to caution or get some clarity if we were looking at it across the entire board, because there are hundreds of not-for-profits in the different categories, but if that's the scope, that's helpful. Thank you for that.
Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mayor. This conversation kind of harkens back to the presentation from Laurie Dillon-Shock last at the Committee of the Whole around community foundations and their role. And of course, in the interest of full disclosure, I am a co-founder of the City of Kawartha Lakes Community Foundation. But I was just wondering, perhaps if we're talking about options and funds and administration moving forward, if perhaps if it's friendly, we could add that staff investigate using the Community Foundation of Kawartha Lakes as the administrator of such funds. Community foundations have experience as professional grant administration. They're also, you know, removing it from the political or the apprehension of political application, and they can also manage that money together at possibly higher interest rates. The Brant County, for example, uses their community foundations for more than $700,000 worth of municipal granting. Toronto Foundation administers some of the City of Toronto grants, and actually it's pretty standard fare for community foundations across the country. The big plus being is it takes the burden and the workload piece also off of city staff, who we know are already taxed and working hard. So I would just put that, if we're going to be looking at options, if we could have staff bring back some findings on the feasibility of that as an option for council to consider as well.
Thank you. I would think that at the time they bring back a report on what's feasible, then we could look at how it rolls out at that time. I don't want to put the cart before the horse. Councillor McDonald.
Yes, through you. Thank you. Yeah. Sounds like a good idea, but we just got to remind that, you know, there's a lot of nonprofit organizations out there, and you'd have to have something set up to make it fair for the whole city of Kawartha Lakes to apply probably for something like that. So nonprofit, you don't have to go very far around the corner to find a nonprofit organization, and everybody does a great job in every one of them. So it seems like whatever the report brings back, and just as long as it's dealt with in a fair manner for the city of Kawartha Lakes. So,
did you want to sum up?
I do, and through you, and that's the point. It's the fairness of this. You know, I don't want to take anything away from any group that does a great job in economic development or arts and culture, but there are some other groups, like I've spoken about in my area, that do amazing initiatives, and I think they, have to be looked at too, to be fair. If we're going to go forward with some sort of fund, then could we look at, increasing the scope? And I'm only asking for a report. We're not deciding on anything today. And I have talked to staff prior to bringing this to the table. So thank you. I hope you'll support
Okay,
it.
that was sum up. All in favor? And that passes. Moving on, next extraction is item 9326, Deputy Mayor Richardson, supporting Bill 74 for emergency needs of vulnerable people.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. I'm moving it as printed. I just wanted to make a quick announcement that actually goes hand in hand with the supporting of this Bill 74, if you don't mind. May 25th is Missing Children's Day. To mark this occasion, Kawartha Lakes would like to remind residents to join in on the Missing Children Society of Canada's Child Search Network for downloading our MCSC Rescue app. The Kawartha Lakes is the first municipality in Ontario to endorse this app, and we're challenging the community to do the same. We're doing it in collaboration with all our local emergency services, Kawartha Lakes Police Services, OPP, Kawartha Lakes Fire and Rescue, Kawartha Lakes Paramedic Services. We'll be launching this app on social media this week, May 25th, so watch out for all the posts that are coming. So thank you. I just think it's pretty awesome that we're the first municipality, and it kind of goes hand in hand with the support of Bill 74. Thank you.
Thank you. You moved that, Councillor Ashmore, are you seconding that?
Yeah, that's fine. I also had a question after this is
Yeah,
done.
so I'll take you as a seconder and go ahead and ask your question.
No, it's related to a different, it's one that was, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt this, but it was to do with one that was omitted, an extraction that I sent in this morning. I'll deal with that after this.
Okay, sorry if I didn't see it, but thank you. Any other comments or questions? All in favor? And that's passed. What was the one that I missed?
Yeah, I sent it at email at 6:34 a.m. It was 9.3.16.
Sorry, you're right, and I did have it, and I skipped over it.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Sure. Just wondering if I could get just a seconder to discuss, if I could move that we receive this and that the city hold one more public consultation meeting. If I could get a seconder just to discuss this, please.
Councillor Joyce, go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for my seconder. Yeah, I just think that we're embarking on a major decision here to expand the Lindsay Ops landfill potentially, because the way the report is worded is that this is where we're going, and during the last 2 years, obviously people couldn't physically get together and which is the best type of meeting, obviously. I mean, Zoom is fine, but there's nothing beats people getting together and discussing it. So I think to be fair to the public, we should hold one more public information meeting about this major decision that we're about to embark upon for the future waste disposal options for the city.
Councillor Joyce, did you wish to speak to it?
Again, I second it because I wanted to hear what Councillor Ashmore had to say, but I need more fill-in to understand why we need another public meeting. I'm on the Waste Committee and I don't currently see the need for that at the moment.
So are you withdrawing your second?
Well, I'd like to hear what other people have to say. I'll keep it there.
Councillor Warren.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with the Councillor Ashmore in many regards, but this is already done. We've put it in the budget. It's done. It's a done deal. And however, I don't like the expansion of the landfill. As I said at Committee of the Whole 20 some odd years ago, that we were told that was the last expansion, that we weren't going to landfill anymore, but that hasn't become a reality, unfortunately. And our hands are tied. This is for residual garbage. So if we do source separated organics and there's a more robust recycling program that maybe maybe producers will make recyclable material. Right now, they're not really doing that, but maybe going forward they will. So I don't think this would go anywhere. However, I do agree with the councillor. I just wish it wasn't so, but it is. So we have to put our garbage somewhere, and this is the best route to do that. So thank you.
Councillor Joyce, I assume the Waste Management Task Force meetings are open meetings? Anybody can come to them?
Yes, they are. And, you know, to that, Councillor Ashman's point, we should maybe perhaps encourage the public to attend these meetings we can easily explain why we're expanding the landfill site and other things that we're doing to mitigate waste going into the landfill, where we're going with this.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Smeet.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, following the last two, I would just add to that, they've kind of stolen right out of my brain. The only third thing I would add is, on that note, is if councillors are receiving questions, as I do, regarding this and their concerns, and that would be similar to having some sort of a public meeting, please encourage sending our emails, and so that we can send those links to, for me as landfill, we're desperately trying really hard to get public support. So if those people are out there with concerns, nothing would be greater than for us to find out we need to use these chambers for a landfill meeting. And to Councillor Ashmore's point, we probably do have those people. We haven't connected the dots yet. So I would love nothing more than to see a landfill meeting with 30 people getting active and finding out what we're doing. And perhaps the time will come when there'll be, more of this sort of thing. But for now, I'm the same as Councillor Joyce. I feel that on the landfill committee, things are in motion that are in motion. So maybe we can get some people in this gallery and have our meetings here. I'd love that.
Thank you. Director Rojas, did you wish to say something?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. The last resolution, we actually brought this report back in February of 2022, and council at the time decided to do more public consultation, which we did. We did both a virtual meeting and an in-house meeting later in 2022. So that has been fulfilled. Nevertheless, during the EA process itself, we will again have more public consultation. So this is not the end of the road. This is only the start of the project, and there will be several public meetings throughout the life of this study. Thank you.
Are you okay with that, Councillor Ashmore, or are you still interested in getting another public meeting?
Yeah, I'm still interested in it. I know where it's going, but maybe I'll just say my final comment, and if I could.
Well, let's see what Councillor Joyce is going to do here. Are you still in as a seconder, or?
Given all the information that's put out there, I'm going to have to rescind my motion, because we have, with all due respect to Councillor Ashmore, we'll have public meetings that will fully explain why we're expanding the landfill site. But again, at the same time, mitigating the impact as much as possible with the direction we're going.
Okay, so I need another seconder. Is there anybody out there wishes to second this? Sorry, see none. Would you move the report as printed?
No, I wouldn't at this time.
Okay, can I have a mover and seconder for 9316? Councillor Smeaton, Councillor McDonald. Any comments or question? No? All in favor? Oh, go ahead.
Thanks. I think it's important that, we do have one more public information meeting, and this is a major environmental decision that we're making. I was part of the Waste Management Committee, which was a great committee from 2018 to 2022 when I served on it. And I think, Mr. Mayor, you were at one of those, we went to the Energy Center in Clarington to look at that. I know we're looking at, we had 5 years to come up with this. I think it was 2018 to 2023, that's 5 years. We had 5 years to come up with a plan with neighboring municipalities, but we didn't, which is disappointing. So we could have had this all ready to go as an alternative, but now we're looking at expanding landfills. We're looking at 19th century technology instead of looking at 21st century technology, which is already here. And it's disappointing, you know, that we're not embarking on that, and we're just going back to the old landfills, and that's unfortunate. But I mean, you know, obviously I'm in the minority here, but I think the majority of the public would like to have more say on this. So that's all where I was going, but I'll respect what council decides to do. So.
Yeah, I think they are going to have that opportunity during the environmental assessment process. So the public can weigh in on it. And in the meantime, I can tell you that we are engaging with our neighbors on discussions on incineration and other energy from waste projects. It was brought up at the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, and several of the municipalities are very interested across Eastern Ontario. So we will have an opportunity to do that. The motion failed, so and we pass. So we have a mover and seconder for the motion on 9316, Future Waste Disposal Option Study. All in favor? And that passes. Moving on, we have 9327. Councillor Perry, that's your repair of Pot Shore Road.
Thanks very much, Mayor. I brought this forward as a memo and further to the deputant from whom we heard. This is a motion to not simply repair winter plow damage from this current year, but what the existing plow damage, and that any further repair would go on to discussion and decision unit in our usual budget process in February. Should I seek a seconder now, Mayor, and then speak to it some more?
Let's hear from Director Robinson on what may be in store or could be done, and then I'll come back to you for a motion. Is that okay?
Sure.
Director, could you give us something on what could be done with that road in the short term and what might be done in the long term?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I understand that the road has disintegrated over time, is eventually turned back into a bit of a gravel road in areas. We'll continue to treat the road like we would any other municipal road and repair the deficiencies that are identified in accordance with minimum maintenance standards. Potholes, shoulder drops, all those kinds of things will be continued to be repaired operationally. I understand what the constituents are looking for is a plan to implement a more permanent resurfacing plan on that road. No? Go ahead then. Maybe I'm misunderstanding what's being asked for.
Sure. As the deputy had mentioned, they're looking for repair of the structural damage from plows going back to Bale Edge 2017, 2018. This issue has been predominant since then. As the deputy said, they're looking for the worst half to be repaired, and then if there's anything structural or further in terms of it being resurfaced, that would come as a decision unit at budget time and compete with all the other requests.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the council, we're saying the same thing in different ways. When Public Works has a road deficiency, whether it's caused by our own equipment damaging the road, by wear and tear, by whatever, those deficiencies are repaired in accordance with minimum maintenance standards by our just general operations. So whether it's adding gravel to the road to fill potholes on gravel roads, whether it's patching deficient areas on hard surface roads, so that would be surface treated or asphalt roads, we do repair those roads. But that is the extent of the repair that would be available operationally. If the residents are looking for the north half of the road to be repaired, i.e. resurfaced, that's beyond the scope of what would happen operationally and would form part of that future capital program.
Would we, for instance, consider doing a smear?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we can take a look at, but from the sounds and extent of it, it would, again, be outside of the scope of what we look at operationally. But what we can do is I can commit to having our operations staff take a look at the road again and reach out to our engineering department for feedback and comment about future, enhanced repairs.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Well, that's it, Mayor, in terms of, we don't know what the technical specifications would be to do this, immediate repair. Although, and there are pictures here that I submitted on behalf of the constituents in our yellow folders as to the state of the roads. And you might think, and you're well warranted to think, why would I bring a road? We've all got roads that have potholes. We've all got roads that are in need of repair. And I may have to answer that to some of my constituents as to why I would bring Potts Shore to council. The reason is, in my opinion, it qualifies because it has been going on since 2017, 2018. My understanding is there have been talk of repairs, but they haven't been effected, or at least they haven't been effective. As our deputant said, they're not talking for pothole repairs. They're looking to get the damage, the ongoing structural plow damage repaired. This is a less than 1 kilometer strip. It was one that we could get finished and be able to provide those residents with some comfort, given this has been going on so long and it isn't an average road request. Usually, my understanding is, Director Robinson, that yes, plow damage gets fixed the same year and gets done very well. I think there's evidence here, and from what I know of the road, that hasn't unfortunately been happening on Potts Road. And now is the time to, I would request to get this one cleaned up. Thank you.
I think I'd blame it on the last councillor.
Your words, Mayor.
Councillor Ashmore.
Thank you. Through you to Director Rojas, this reminds me of a road near Thurstonia, Pitts Cove Road, it's almost identical, and we used life cycle extension program. Could we use that program in this, perhaps, or is that would it be a candidate because it's in the engineering?
Actually, if I could speak to that first. Just this, one of the reasons I brought this as a memo was because there'd been talk, and I talked to staff about it being in the road cycle life extension program, and then it was a maybe it's in, and then I found it recently it's not in. We could have worked with that, but again, that's why I'm bringing it forward today. Thank you.
This is another example where councillors it's really good to have site visits with staff. And I've had a few, but we don't seem to have as many anymore. But I think Councillor Perry's bringing up a great point. The people brought this to our attention, to his attention, and now to our attention. And that's the way to do it. And we need to communicate with staff about these areas, and everybody has them as well. But I mean, you have to deal with them. We can't just slough them off and say they'll be dealt with in a few years to come. But we have to get it done. It doesn't matter where it is. So that's my opinion. We need to get staff out there and have meetings and site visits. It's really important.
Thank you. So, Councillor Perry, what's your motion?
My motion is pretty much as it stands there, that staff review the conditions and perform the necessary local repairs as required as a result of, I'm going to take out 2022, 2023 winter plow damage because it's been outstanding and long-term, and that we can include this in a decision unit in budget consideration if there is restructuring or resurfacing required in addition.
Do you have a seconder? Councillor Warren? Councillor Joyce?
I can think of 3, 4, maybe 5 roads in the same condition in my ward. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Warren, did you want to speak to this?
Just quickly, I think the difference, we all have roads that are a problem, but I think this is plow damage, and that's a salient point with this, so that's why I second it.
Director Robinson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just again want to reiterate that whether it's plow damage on a high float road, whether it's an accident on an asphalt road, we're going to maintain those roads in accordance with MMS. And I think there's been a bit of a misunderstanding that this road hasn't been maintained since 2017-18. That's not the case. The road meets and is in compliance with minimum maintenance standards and will continue to do so. So the steps that are being recommended here, I support, but we're already doing them. We are already reviewing the road for its condition. We're maintaining the road in its current state, and it's part of the life cycle program that will be reviewed moving forward. So again, if the motion passes as recommended, it's really a status quo recommendation which we support.
Thank you. Councillor McDonald.
Roads. I just heard the answer. Like, we've heard the answer 5 times. He's going to go out there and fix the road. So why we keep on talking about it? He's going to go out and fix it. So let's get it fixed. It's only a kilometer. He's going to do it, right? So I don't understand why we're talking so long about this, because we already had a comment saying that he's going to go out and do it. So I'll support your motion because he just said he's going to do it.
Councillor Smeed.
I typed this out just because I wanted to make sure I was clear. I spoke to Councillor Perry about my feelings regarding this road, and he and I share honesty regardless of feelings, and I think that's what makes us a good team. And this is a great opportunity to show support. I'm with Councillor McDonald. I've driven this road on the weekend. I went out to Councillor Ashmore's point. I have roads in Ward 5 that are as bad. But Councillor Perry's done his diligence. He feels this is extreme enough to bring to council ahead of budget discussions 5 months from now. We have the director saying he doesn't really even get why there's the motion because I'm going to do it anyway. I also spoke with a councillor whose reflections always encourage a fulsome discussion in these situations. That was the advice, great advice, and we've had that. So I have every reason to believe that should other councillors come forward with roads in similar or worse disrepair, there'll be the same level of priority regarding placement on the agenda, as long as we too demonstrate the severity along with sincere deputation, accompanied with a petition respecting the process. So a fellow councillor needs our support. He's worked very hard to demonstrate his needs with hard work. It sounds like the director supports the motion altogether, and I know Councillor Perry will work the same for us in the future. It sounds to me like Councillor McDonald said it. I don't see any conflict here. So I'm just, you know, the director has said he's doing a great job, and Councillor Perry is asking for that great job to be done. So.
Great. Do you want to sum up?
Just very briefly, thank you very much to my fellow councillors. I know, Deputy Mayor had some roads that she brought that were outstanding earlier in the term, as did Councillor Warren during the budget process. I guess what I'm looking for is the comfort and reassurance of a council direction. Thank you.
So we have a mover and seconder, all in favor, and that passes.
Thank you.
Moving right along. That's the extractions from Committee of the Whole. We'll now do Planning Advisory Committee. I need a mover and seconder that the minutes of the May 10th, 2023.
No, I think we still have to do the ballots, the minutes we've extracted, so we have to do the rest of the reports.
I thought we did that.
No, we didn't.
All right. I need a mover and seconder that the minutes of the May 9th, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting be received and the recommendations, including in section 9.3 of the agenda, be adopted, save and except those that were extracted. Councillor Yeo, Deputy Mayor Richardson, all in favor, and that's passed. Now we'll move on to planning. I need a mover and seconder that the minutes of the May 10th, 2023 Planning Advisory Committee meeting be received and the recommendations included in section 10.3 of the agenda be adopted. Councillor Warren, Deputy Mayor Richardson, any comments or questions or extractions from planning? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's passed. Moving on to item 10?
11.
11. Councillor Smeaton, you have the consent agenda.
I do, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I move that all of the proposed resolutions shown in section 11.1 of the agenda be approved and adopted by council in the order that they appear on the agenda and sequentially numbered, save and except for items 11.11, 11.12, 11.13, 11.14, 11.15, 11, no?
The only extractions we have are 11.11, 11.17, 11.19.
I apologize, and thank you, sir. I see now what you did, and that's my fault. 11.11, 11.17, and 11.19. My apologies.
Do you have a seconder for that?
Yes, I do.
Councillor Ashmore, thank you. All in favor? And that's passed. So item 11.11, capital closed, has been extracted by Deputy Mayor Richardson, Councillor Ashmore, and Councillor Joyce. Start with you, Deputy Mayor Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just extracted it just for the purpose of maybe just a quick overview from staff. This is a very fulsome report. You know, and we do get those timeline constraints and, you know, some of those granted extensions that have to be put in there so the work can get done. I was just going to ask staff if they could just give us a quick overview on how that's, you know, how it's played out.
Director Bokaboom, are you going to do that, or one of your very able staff members?
I can start. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. We also have some very able staff members online if there were any specific projects that council was concerned with. So first of all, thank you for the question. I believe what you're asking for is a walkthrough of both the close and the reason for the request for extensions. So it's normal practice in our policy that we would properly assess a project, assess the timing, quote the budget, go to procurement and close the project within a timely manner. But for a variety of reasons, especially through COVID, some of our normal process hasn't followed as smoothly as in other years. So the reason for requests for some of the extensions, again, very predominant throughout the COVID period, where there were quite a few delays that occurred in the projects, whether it was staffing concerns, staff off sick, whether it was contractors who were also having trouble getting staffed. The competitiveness of procurement during that time period was a little bit problematic. So first off, that's why in this particular one, we have a higher volume of extensions being requested. Secondly, there's often legislation to be followed and EA timelines that supersede any of the City of Kawartha Lakes timelines, and we require special licenses, et cetera, and that's beyond our control, sometimes longer in order to get those licenses than expected. Land purchases or easements are sometimes a concern on a major, larger capital project. Staff vacancies are another reason that might impact the delivery of projects, again, very predominantly through the COVID time period. And then some require testing to make sure it's complete and that we're willing to assume the project and sign off. So for a variety of reasons, projects do remain open. What you'll see in this particular report, the first section of projects being closed for June 30th is staff identified the fact that they could close those by that time period. And then we have another layer to be closed December 31st on ones where they require a little bit longer time period to finish. And ultimately, some fall into 2024. We would like to see this improved over time as we recover from the COVID period. The competitive nature and the bidding is back into its normal market right size, as well as staff and contractors back at full capacity. So for this one, you're seeing a rather small amount being returned to the reserve. It would be our intent to do that and to improve upon the timeliness of that into the future.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the director? Councillor Warren.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for that. And just a broad question. Because of COVID, a lot of maybe contractors had supply chain issues. Is that resolving, or is that part of the problem also?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. It was certainly prevalent during the COVID time period. What we're seeing now is the price has changed as a result of COVID, and that's why you see many of the purchasing reports coming in seeking additional funding on top of our budget. So while the right sizing of staff might be happening, the determination and the market cost of some of our budgets compared to what we're going to market for is still prevalently a pressing factor right now.
Councillor Ashmore.
Through you to Director Buchman. I just had two specific questions, okay? Yeah. So the first one was the Bob Cajun Beach Park. They're holding back $267,000. Just wondering what the in-water work is about. In-water, awaiting approval for in-water work. Maybe Director Shanks might know that, but I thought all the funds were all going to be there to finish it. No.
Director Shanks.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. So that money is not being held back right now. It's still certainly in the budget for us. We are awaiting approvals from the Trent Severn to do the in-water work in relation to the boat launch itself. So those funds have been approved and are waiting for the approval, and then it will pay for that work to be completed.
Okay, thanks. And the last question was the Mill Pond Bridge replacement. Maybe to Director Buchman. There's $84,000 left in that, and this was quite a remarkable build because we actually made money on this. We had a surplus, which was great. And I'm just wondering, are these funds going to be moved around, because we're going to need these funds obviously to do some repairs on that bridge, minor repairs, and not structurally, but because of the detour, but that can be done. And I was told this morning that I was asked this morning, perhaps if we could get a handrail for pedestrians as they approach the bridge. We haven't priced it out or anything, but just wanted to make sure that we're going to have those funds available there, and it's not going to be transferred anywhere else in the city, so it stays to that site-specific project.
They don't get transferred. What would happen is they would go back to the reserve, so they would still be available.
So how long do funds stay in a specific project before they get taken away?
When the project's closed and it comes in a closed report and says the project's closed, and any surplus funds are then put back into the reserve. But they're there in the reserve should other work need to be done on the asset.
All right, sounds good. Thanks.
Okay. Councillor Joyce, did you have a question for Ms. Polkaboom?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. Just one line item really jumped out at me is the pump chamber construction that was originally budgeted in 2016. And just kind of flesh that out for better understanding, because it's now way over budget. So why it's taking, I don't even know what that is, so and why it's taking so long.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll defer to Engineer Rojas to answer that question.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe that is the Lindsay North closed landfill. What line item? So if it is that project, we did go through litigation. So the company that was originally hired through the procurement process went bankrupt. There was litigations with their sub, and it's a whole legal thing. So I might have to defer to our solicitor because I'm not sure what I can and cannot say in open. But I believe that's the project you're talking about.
All you have to say is legal, and I understand the delay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, could I just add a follow-up to the question earlier from Councillor Warren through you? The Treasurer's just sending me a note on the side here indicating that fleet, of course, is still a major holdback. The market hasn't yet recovered in that regard, so there's a lot of delays and years in the making of some of our vehicles, so that one hasn't yet right-sized.
Deputy Mayor Richardson, are you fine now? Okay. Councillor Ashmore, your questions were answered?
Yeah, I just had one more, if you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead.
This is it. So sort of bring it up with Councillor Smeaton, but I'll ask it here. It's the Lindsay Verlem tank, water tank, which is on Highway 36, and it was, I believe, in 2017. I wasn't here, but 2016 or it was. I think it was close to $1 million was renovated, and it looks great. It still looks excellent, but just wondering why this particular expenditure wasn't alerted back at that time for the rapid plumbing. Was that not part of that whole retrofit, that whole renovation that we did 6-7 years ago on that tower, on that water tower?
Director Rojas, do you have information?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So the project that was completed 6 or 7 years ago in that time frame was twofold. It was one for the coating of the exterior of the water tower, and also to bury the hydro lines. So if you notice, the hydro lines are aerial until you get close to the tower, and then they go underground, then they go back up. And that's because in order to do any work on the tower, when they put the scaffolding up, you have to be a certain distance away from the hydro line, and we couldn't de-energize the line, so we buried it so that there's no future requirement to de-energize it 20, 30 years from now. So the scope of the project that was done six or 7 years ago was only for the external cladding or the structure of that water tower, and that was completed. And then a couple years later, I believe it was an altitude valve or some plumbing, as you mentioned, that had come up through our operations group that we replaced. Actually, the original altitude valve was, I believe, fixed or rebuilt once or twice to extend the life at a very reduced cost. And then the life was up, so we had to replace it.
Thank you. Councillor Joyce, do you have your question answered, or do you have it on?
Yeah, I have my question answered. I guess in the future, if it in the comment section said pending litigation would be helpful. Yeah, other line items that do say that, and I highlighted them, but it answers the question really. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Richardson, do you want to make a motion as printed?
Make the motion to move as printed.
Okay. And do you have a seconder, Councillor Warren? All in favor? And that's passed. Our next extraction is item 1117, Kawartha Lakes Police Service Phase 2 renovation. Councillor Joyce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, this would be directed to Director Shanks. Lands in his portfolio. Just really surprised to see the additional fund request. It actually amounts to 30% over and above the original project budget. I note that there's a note here, original cost estimate would not have anticipated inflationary changes due to the global economy. I understand that too. That would account for 10-12% of extra budgetary requests. What about the other 20%? If you can explain where that comes from and why.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, it's similar to how Director Bukaboom provided the answer on the previous question when we were talking about the capital close. We are just now starting to sort of realize and respond to the increase in the market costs. So while it would have been nice to expect 10%, as you've seen, as council has approved in the past little bit, you're seeing some additional funding be required for a number of projects, and those over budget tenders are closing in that 30% and even higher range. So this really is a result of, unfortunate, of COVID, and we certainly are working, I know all departments of the city working with our finance group to ensure that future budgets are taking into account the impact that COVID has had on the market and what the costs will be moving forward.
Thank you. Are you saying that this is, will we see more to come in the nature of 30% increases with the global economy? And
Again,
other projects?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I know that we are seeing on some facility style of projects upwards of $750 per square foot. for the construction of a facility. A lot of times it's understood that that includes a demolition and there's asbestos within that previous facility, but that does incorporate into that cost. So I don't know what the actual percentage will be moving forward, if that's going to stay where it is, if we're going to see some relief similar to what the housing market to a degree has seen with the sale of homes going up and then dropping down a bit. But I would suggest certainly we will be seeing an increase in percentage on capital projects as we move forward that we're going to have to work into our budget cycles.
Thank you, Director Shanks.
Chief Mitchell is on the line. I don't know, Chief, did you want to add anything to Director Shanks's answer to the question?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Director Shanks covered it well. The only thing I would point out is the specialized nature of this renovation, which may add to that increase as well.
Councillor, are you fine?
Well, that begs the question, wasn't the specialized nature in the original budget?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, it was, but I think it just is one of those items exacerbated by those construction increases that we've seen as a result.
Thank you.
You're going to move the...
Yeah, okay, I'll move it.
Have a seconder. Councillor Perry. All in favor? And that's passed. Thank you. Our last extraction, 1119, Ontario Laboratories Information Systems. Councillor Ashmore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to EMS Chief Johnson. I just had a question here. So our test results from people, are these from people who you interact with, and their test results are given to you? First of all, test results and any medical information is so confidential, and we have to be very careful where it goes in cyberspace or wherever it goes. I'm just not sure who this Ontario Laboratories Information System is, and if we are the health information custodian, as it says, could you sort of explain what the health information custodian is, and does that mean that you're privy to everybody's medical records? Could you explain that, please?
Sure. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, I know Deputy Chief Golden is also on the line and authored the report, so I'll start, and if he has anything to add. What Ontario Laboratory Information Systems is so as paramedic scope is expanding, there's lots of different tests that paramedics are collecting in terms of blood samples, urinalysis, those sorts of things. As those tests are collected, they are dropped off to a lab, and OLIS is the system that updates the lab results and those sorts of things. So as health information custodians, we're privy, or paramedics are privileged to information that pertains to that test, not necessarily all information that is on a patient chart. So OLIS is strictly the lab system that when we drop off that specimen, the sample, or the urine, the blood sample, that goes into OLIS, and then the paramedic is then able to access that result. In order to have that access, a data sharing agreement needs to exist between the paramedic service and the keepers of OLIS.
Okay, so if a patient goes into the hospital, either it be either Lindsay or Minden or Haliburton or Port Perry or Aurelia, Peterborough, does this information get shared to the physician that's there? I mean, they're the ones that need to get that information, but do you, like, how do you share that if somebody really needs that information? That's your information, your medical information, but you can't access it because your doctor can't access it, but you've got it somewhere, stored somewhere. I'm just wondering, like, how this whole thing is puzzling to me, because e-health and all that stuff, it's all, putting that aside, it's been a whole debacle in the whole thing. Not saying that this is a debacle, but I think people want clarity as to know, like, where their health information is going and how they can access it. That's really the important thing, because if they need it, and you can't access it, but you have access to it, but how does the doctor, like a physician on call, get that access from our paramedic services?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Ashmore, as the paramedic would submit the sample to the lab system, that would get updated. The paramedic would be able to access the result as well as the person's family physician. So typically, whoever the healthcare provider or the circle of care is with that patient, they would be able to see that information. You could potentially share that back to the patient. And then I don't think that the scope of this report would explain how the patient themselves access those details. Rather, it would be the patient's primary care provider and the paramedic. And Deputy Chief Golden, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
Sure, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Ashmore. Hopefully I can provide a little more detail, but basically what I want you to think is that this data disclosure agreement is necessary for our service to house information. So these situations wouldn't really require the patient to go to the hospital. These are typically our community paramedics that are going out into the field and they're obtaining blood test results. Most of you would probably understand if I use the COVID-19 testing. So our paramedics will have the ability to perform PCR tests. And much the same as all of you probably did have a PCR test at one point, OLIS would be where your information would be kept. And so that you could go into Ontario Health and see whether you were positive or negative. So that's essentially what's happening, is that OLIS is basically a server. It is where all the information is kept. That way it is kept safe and it is abiding by all the HIPAA laws, so any type of privacy laws.
That's good. I mean, that's positive. I mean, I'll give you an example, like a blood test. Probably half the population doesn't even know what their blood type is. So I'm all positive. But if somebody else could tell you what their blood, type is, they probably couldn't say it. Maybe half the population, but something you should memorize. But yeah. So I mean, this is encouraging, but I mean, I just don't want to see this go round and around. But what people want to see is when they go to a physician, go to emergency, that's where most people go to see their doctor, that they have access to that medical information, their history. So that's what I'm just sort of trying to wrap around, whether this initiative will help the doctor, the local doctor, the nurse practitioner, whatever, to have access to your medical, history if you need to look into it to help them. So will that actually, what do you think this will really help local healthcare providers in that way?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Ashmore, yes, 100% will. And what it also does is, because the purpose behind our community paramedic program is to allow us to go to persons' homes, to allow them to stay at home, by providing these tests and gaining these test results and being able to store this information with OLIS, it allows these patients to actually remain at home and not actually have to schedule a doctor's appointment. They would actually have access to this through OLIS. So I do think that this program is a step forward in becoming a paperless program, and it is a secure place for all their health information. But all of the information, no difference if you went to an emerge and had an x-ray done and it's stored in your personal file, your family physician would have access to this.
Okay, and just the final question is, Ontario Laboratories Information System, is that a branch of Ontario Health?
Through you, Mary, yes it is.
That's fine.
Are you going to move the recommendation?
Yeah, I'll move.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Warren. Councillor Joyce, you had a question?
Yes, I did. Councillor Ashmore actually covered that. I was wondering if OLIS was a private company or part of an Ontario government. You're saying it's part of the Ontario government? Deputy?
Yes, through you, Mayor. And yes, that's exactly what happens there.
Okay. Where I was going with
this is not a private company. It used to be a part of eHealth, and since then it's been switched over to Ontario Health.
Okay, that gives me solace there, because if it was a private company, you mentioned it would be safe in their server. We're all well aware of how hacking can occur, and our responsibility as health information custodian is to do testing of third-party suppliers to make sure that they're very resilient. And that was my question, but seeing it's part of the Ontario government, I'm okay with this. Thank you.
Okay, we have a mover and seconder. All in favor? That's passed. Moving on to bylaws. Councillor Ashmore, I believe you have bylaws.
Good.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
Sure.
Item 12.1 is a petition regarding a right turn lane at the south entrance of Victoria Place off of Kawartha Lake 17, former township of Verlem. A copy of the petition with 102 signature is available at the clerk's office. You have a motion for that?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was given this. This is a copy of it. This is an actual copy of it here. So I know on the website. I was hoping that it would show the whole amount, but I think for space purposes, we just show the first page. But just thought I'd show everybody this petition here to create a right turn lane at the south entrance of Victoria Place, at Old Surrey Lane and Highway 17. So Victoria Place, many know, is 214 houses, so almost 500 people live there. And they've asked for, if the city could install a right turning lane coming from the south. And perhaps this can coordinate when we do Highway 17 from where it ended off at Colony Road to Highway 36, and that's the last north section of 36. So perhaps the motion could be that this petition be presented to staff and that this be considered when that road is to be done. Or what we did in Lakeview Estates, the developer who expanded on the Lakeview Estates, we actually allowed them to put a turning lane on. I don't know whether we could maybe next year as a decision unit, we could consider a right turning lane.
Well, let's refer it to staff and have them come back to us with what's possible, and then
that's fine.
We can do that.
That's fine.
Okay, so your motion is to receive the petition and refer it to staff.
Yes, please.
Okay. Seconder, Councillor Warren. Did you want to speak to it more, Councillor Ashmore, or are you fine?
Yeah, just basically that people have asked that it's just much more safer trying to get to Highway 17, Pigeon Lake Road as it's called, when people are trying to turn into that subdivision. You know, you just need some time to, safety-wise, that a turning lane certainly would be a good fit for right there. So they're asking for it for safety concerns. So there's been a few close calls.
And report back by the end of the third quarter?
That's fine.
Thank you. Councillor Warren, did you want to speak to it?
Yeah, through you. Yeah, that's a bad area at the south end, but also the north end is a bigger problem, I think. So maybe do you mind a friendly amendment to look at that entrance, exit, egress, ingress, because there are many. It's on a curve, and I think that is more dangerous than the other end. But I think that whole area needs to be looked at because it's on a big curve. Thank you. If you'll accept the friendly.
Are you taking that as a friendly?
Yes, that's fine. Thank
you. The north end and the south end.
North and south?
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? We have a mover and seconder to receive the petition and for staff to report back by the end of the third quarter. All in favor? And that's passed. Moving on to 12.2, which is a petition regarding the placement of speed limit signs on Kawartha Lakes Road 17 near Victoria Place, former township of Verlem. A copy of the petition is in the clerk's office. We have page 1. So the motion here is to receive and refer to staff for a report back by the end of the third quarter. Do you want to speak to it, Councillor Ashmore?
Yes, please. I've been working with, and the executive there, I've been working with Joe Kelly, a senior engineering technician. So all they were asking for is that, actually 2 years ago, 60-kilometer signs were put up from just before you get to Ranch Road as it goes around to the north end of entrance of Victoria Place that Councillor Warren had mentioned, which is probably it is the most dangerous part of that subdivision or part of that highway, which 2 years ago, I think there were 2 deaths, unfortunately, at that corner. So we brought that speed down from 80 to 60, and all they were asking for was that 60 be extended a bit further to the south. So south of the south entrance. There's 2 entrances into Victoria Place, the north and the south. So they were just asking that staff here engineering staff could look at moving that 60-kilometer sign further south.
You're moving that?
Yes,
to
please.
receive, refer to staff, report back by the end of the third quarter.
Yes, please.
Seconder is Councillor Warren. Comments or questions? No? All in favor? And that's passed. Now we'll move on to bylaws. Councillor Ashmore, you have bylaws?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, and seconded by Councillor Smeaton, that the bylaws shown in section 14.1 of the agenda, namely items 14.1.12 and including 14.1.25, be read a first, second, and third time passed, numbered, signed, and the corporate seal attached.
Thank you. All in favor? And that's passed. So we're now going into closed session. There's no notice of motion, there's no bylaws extracted, and at this point in the meeting, City Council will go into closed session to consider the item under section 16.3 of the agenda. All remaining staff, with the exception of the CAO, City Clerk, and City Solicitor, are now instructed to leave the electronic meeting at this time.
The agenda approval. Adoption of closed session agenda.
I was going to do that.
Oh, sorry.
Anyway, it's what? 16.1.
0.1.
Yeah, and this is item 16.
Okay.
Sorry. As per our procedural bylaw requirements, I'm asking all remaining participants in our meeting today to confirm with me by raising their hands that they are in a private room where no other person can overhear the deliberations and the internet connection is secure and not publicly accessible. Thank you. Please, can I get a mover and seconder for the following motion? The council convene into closed session at 2:58 p.m. pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act in order to consider matters identified in section 16.3 of the regular council meeting agenda of Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023, namely items 16.3.1, 2 and including 16.3.3. Councillor Joyce, Councillor Perry. All in favor? Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest on anything on the council, on the closed council agenda today? Seeing none, should any arise, notify the chair. We'll deal with them accordingly. At this point, the meeting broadcast will now end for members of the public watching on Cogeco, your TV cable, the live stream of the meeting on YouTube, and the rebroadcast on the cable and Rogers Ignite will now be temporarily paused for members of the public. When closed session is completed, the live stream and rebroadcast of the meeting will resume to address the remaining open session items on the agenda. Okay, we're good. We're back. Madam Clerk, any matters from closed session?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, from matters from closed session, item 16.3.1, confidential closed minutes. The confidential closed session minutes for regular council meeting of April 18th, 2023 were approved. Item 16.3.2 being report RS 2023-032. An appraisal for the road allowance adjacent to 55 Coldstream Road, Fallon Falls was provided to council in accordance with section 3.03 of disposition of land bylaw 2018-020. Council provided instruction to staff. Item 16.3.3, council received an update on report Corp 2023-012. The renewal of the CEO contract.
You don't need any motions, right? Great.
If I may, may I just ask that it be changed to refinements to the contract? There was no end date, so renewal might not be the appropriate term. Refined. Just because there was no end date, so there technically wasn't a renewal?
Councillor Perry, you have the confirming bylaw.
Why, yes, I do. It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Yeo that a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of a regular council meeting held Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023 be read a first, second, and third time, passed, numbered, signed, and the corporate seal attached.
All in favor? And that's passed. I have a motion to adjourn. Councillor Yeo, Councillor Smeaton, all in favor? Thank you all.